and welcome. Today, we're going to shrink way, way down to the microscopic level to check out something that's keeping you alive every single second of the day. It's called the plasma membrane. You can think of it as the ultimate bouncer for every single cell in your body. It's this tiny but super powerful boundary that decides who gets in and who has to stay out. So, what is this gatekeeper really? And why is it so incredibly important for, well, life itself? That's what we're going to dive into and figure out together. All right, so to really understand this gatekeeper, we first have to see what it's made of. And I'll tell you right now, it's not some simple brick wall. Nope, it's a living, dynamic boundary that is always, always in motion. At its most basic, the plasma membrane is just a thin, flexible barrier. Its main job? To create a safe little bubble for the cell, separating all the important stuff inside from the chaotic, unpredictable world outside. So how is this living wall even built? Well, its structure is honestly genius. The best way to picture it is to think of a sandwich. A very, very special sandwich that's built around loving and hating water. Take a look at this right here. This is the core of it, what we call the phospholipid bilayer. And you can see it really does look like a sandwich, right? It's got two outer layers and then a totally different filling squished in the middle. Let's just break down that name real quick. Phospholipid bilayer. That little word bi, that just means two. So it's a wall made of two layers of these molecules called phospholipids. And this two-layer design is basically its superpower. And here is why that sandwich design is so incredibly smart. Every single one of those phospholipid molecules has two different parts, a head that loves water and tails that absolutely hate it. Now, since our bodies are mostly water, all the water-loving heads automatically turn to face the watery world, inside and outside the cell. And the water-hating tails? They hide. They tuck themselves away in the middle, creating this amazing, stable, waterproof barrier. It's pretty brilliant. But hold on, the membrane is way more than just a wall of phospholipids. Think of it like a bustling city street with a whole crew of other molecules floating around, and each one has a super important job to do. So let's meet them. This crew is what makes the membrane a real powerhouse. First up, you've got these big proteins that work like tunnels or special doorways, letting only specific things pass in and out. Then you have cholesterol tucked in there, which is super important for keeping the membrane from getting too stiff or too floppy. And on the outside, you have these carbohydrate chains that act like little ID badges, helping cells recognize their friends. So we've met the crew, but here's the thing. They are not just standing still. The plasma membrane is in constant motion. It's much more like a flowing dance than some solid wall. You know, scientists have a really cool name for this idea. They call it the fluid mosaic model. Fluid because everything is constantly moving and flowing, and mosaic because, like a piece of art, it's made up of all these different little pieces working together. And I absolutely love this analogy for it. It says to imagine the proteins and all those other molecules as if they're apples floating in a barrel of water. They can bob around, they can slide past each other, but they all stay contained within that barrel, which is our sea of phospholipids. And this image here just shows it perfectly. See how those proteins and cholesterol molecules aren't locked into one spot. They're constantly drifting around. This fluidity is absolutely essential. If the membrane were rigid and stiff, it just couldn't do its job. Okay, so we have this fluid, dancing, mosaic structure. Now let's see how that structure allows the membrane to do its most critical job of all, being the cell's ultimate picky gatekeeper. The key phrase here is selective permeability. Selective, of course, means it chooses, and permeability is just about what can pass through. So put it together, and it just means the membrane is really, really picky. It gets the final say on everything that comes in and everything that goes out. A good way to think about it is like a fishnet. A fishnet lets all the water flow through easily, but it keeps the big fish contained, right? The cell membrane is like a much, much smarter version of that. So what gets the VIP pass to get inside? All the essential things the cell needs to survive, like oxygen and water. And what gets kicked out? All the waste products, like carbon dioxide. That would be toxic if they built up inside. It is a constant life or death balancing act. So why is this whole gatekeeper job so critical? Well, it's all about allowing the cell to achieve this perfect state of balance called homeostasis. You can think of it as the cell's happy place, that sweet spot where everything is just right for it to live and thrive. So, the main takeaway is this: the plasma membrane is not just a wall, it is a living, intelligent system. It's always checking, it's always moving, and it's always making choices to protect the cell and keep it in that perfect state of balance.
And that really just leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? If a structure this tiny is so incredibly complex and smart, just imagine what other microscopic marvels are working away inside you right now to keep everything going. Thanks so much for joining me.